Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. The old screen door groaned the same way it had for 40 years as I pushed it open. Stepping onto the porch of the lake cabin felt like stepping back in time. The scent of pine needles and damp earth, the way the sunlight filtered through the tall trees, dappling the weathered wooden planks, it was all exactly as I remembered from countless childhood summers. Except this time felt different. Heavier. We were here to sort through Aunt Carol's things, a task none of us had been looking forward to. Mark was already inside. I could hear the faint clinking of glasses, probably him making coffee. My cousin Mark. We'd been inseparable as kids, partners in crime during those hazy, endless summers by the lake. Building forts, daring each other to swim to the little island, whispering secrets after dark in the loft bedroom. But life has a way of pulling threads apart, doesn't it? Marriages, kids, careers, different cities. We hadn't truly connected, just the two of us, in years. Polite calls on holidays, brief chats at family gatherings, always surface level. Now, facing this task together, just the two of us for the weekend, felt significant, maybe a little daunting. I walked into the familiar kitchen, its yellow linoleum floor worn smooth in paths between the sink, stove, and table. Mark turned from the counter, a steaming mug in each hand. He smiled, that same slightly crooked smile he'd always had, but something in his eyes held a different light today. Or maybe I was just projecting my own apprehension onto him. "Hey, Sarah, you made good time," he said, his voice a little deeper, rougher than the teenage version stored in my memory. "Coffee's fresh." He handed me a mug, our fingers brushing briefly. A tiny, unexpected jolt, like static electricity, but warmer. It was probably nothing, just the Orimane, Orimane. It's been a while. Awkwardness. "Thanks, Mark. Traffic wasn't too bad." I took a sip, the hot liquid a welcome comfort. The silence stretched for a moment, filled only by the ticking of the old cuckoo clock on the wall, the one we were both terrified of as kids when it sprang to life. So, I started, looking around at the boxes stacked haphazardly. Where do we begin? He ran a hand through his hair, now more salt than pepper, mirroring the silver threads I knew were multiplying in my own. Attic, I guess. That seems like the most overwhelming part. Get it done first. I nodded. The attic. A treasure trove of forgotten memories, and undoubtedly a lot of dust. We spent the next few hours up there, surrounded by the ghosts of summers past. Old photo albums, stacks of board games with missing pieces, clothes long out of style, furniture draped in white sheets like sleeping giants. We worked mostly in silence at first, the shared task a buffer against the need for forced conversation. But then Mark unearthed a wooden box, intricately carved. "Remember this?" he asked, holding it out. My breath caught. It was the treasure chest we'd buried one summer, filled with our most prized possessions. A shiny stone, a bird's feather, a note promising to be best friends forever. We'd dug it up before leaving that year, vowing to keep it safe. Aunt Carol must have stored it away. "Wow," I whispered, tracing the carved lid. "I can't believe she kept it." Mark carefully opened it. Inside, nestled amongst the faded childhood treasures, was the note. His handwriting, loopy and earnest. Mine, smaller, more precise, even then. Best friends forever. We looked at each other, and for the first time that day, the awkwardness melted away, replaced by a shared wave of nostalgia so potent it felt like a physical presence in the dusty air. He smiled again, but this time it reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. It wasn't just the polite smile of distant cousins. It was the smile of the boy who knew my secrets, the boy I'd built forts with. Yet there was something else layered beneath it, something thoughtful, maybe even a little sad. He looked at me, really looked at me, not just as Sarah, my cousin, but as me, the woman I was now, shaped by the years between then and now. And in that moment, seeing the weight of his own life reflected in his gaze, I realized I was looking at him differently too. The air in the attic suddenly felt charged, not with tension, but with the quiet hum of rediscovery. We sorted through photo albums next, sitting side by side on the dusty floor. Pictures of us as gap-toothed kids, grinning wildly on the dock. Awkward teenagers at a family barbecue, trying too hard to look cool. Young adults celebrating college graduations. Each photo was a stepping stone through our shared history. We laughed at goofy outfits and questionable hairstyles, pointed out relatives long gone, shared anecdotes sparked by the images. "Look at Uncle Bob's shorts," Mark chuckled, pointing to a faded snapshot. "He wore those every single summer." "And Aunt Carol's giant sunglasses," I added, smiling. She thought they made her look like a movie star. The easy rhythm of shared memory flowed between us, washing away the years of polite distance. It felt good, natural, like slipping back into a comfortable old pair of shoes, only to find they fit better than you remembered. We found pictures from the summer I turned 16. There was one of me standing by the lake, looking impossibly young and full of unsure dreams. Mark paused at that one, his finger hovering over the image. "I remember that day," he said softly. "You were so upset because Jenny Miller hadn't invited you to her party. I'd forgotten all about that silly teenage drama. You sat with me on the dock for hours," I recalled, a faint blush rising in my cheeks at the memory of my youthful angst. "You told me Jenny Miller was an idiot and that I was way cooler than her anyway." He looked up from the photo, his gaze meeting mine. Again, that look, deeper than just remembrance. It held an echo of that long-ago protectiveness, but overlaid with something new, an appreciation perhaps, an acknowledgement of the person I'd become. "Well," he said, a gentle seriousness in his tone, "I wasn't wrong, was I?" His words hung in the air, simple but landing with unexpected weight. It wasn't a flirtatious comment. It felt like genuine validation, a quiet acknowledgement of my worth, then and now. It disarmed me, made me feel seen in a way I hadn't anticipated. The dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight slanting through the attic window, and the silence that followed wasn't empty, but full of unspoken understanding. We weren't just cousins sorting through dusty boxes. We were two people reconnecting on a level that surprised us both. The afternoon wore on, and the attic yielded more treasures and triggers for conversation. We found old letters exchanged between our parents, revealing sides of them we'd never known. We found Aunt Carol's high school yearbooks, laughing at the earnest inscriptions. The work was emotionally draining, but also strangely cathartic. As the sun began to dip lower, painting the dusty air in hues of orange and gold, we decided to tackle the main bedroom downstairs. It felt even more personal, filled with Aunt Carol's everyday things, her books, her knitting basket, the faint scent of her lavender perfume still lingering in the air. We moved with a quiet reverence, folding clothes for donation, setting aside items for other family members. Mark picked up a small, framed photograph from the bedside table. It was Aunt Carol and Uncle David on their wedding day, young and beaming. "She missed him so much," Mark murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Uncle David had passed away years ago, and Aunt Carol had never really been the same. I came to stand beside him, looking at the photo. She really did. Remember how she used to tell us stories about their courtship? Like it was a grand adventure. He nodded, tracing the edge of the frame. She kept his fishing hat on the hook by the door right up until... His voice trailed off. I rested a hand gently on his arm, a simple gesture of shared grief and understanding. He didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting mine over the photograph. The look was back, intensified by the shared sadness. It held empathy, vulnerability, a profound sense of connection forged in that moment of remembering a loved one. It was as if the carefully constructed walls we'd built around ourselves over the years just dissolved, leaving us standing there, two souls recognizing the shared pain and history in each other's eyes. It wasn't romantic. It was deeper than that. It was the raw, unfiltered recognition of family, of loss, of the enduring power of love and memory. He swallowed, then managed a small, watery smile. She was a good woman, Carol. The best, I agreed softly, my hand still resting on his arm. The contact felt necessary, grounding. We stood there for a long moment, united in our grief and our rediscovery of each other, the silence amplifying the unspoken emotions swirling between us. The setting sun cast long shadows across the room, wrapping us in a warm, melancholic embrace. It felt like a turning point, a quiet deepening of the bond we were unexpectedly rebuilding. We finished sorting the bedroom in a state of quiet companionship. The earlier ease had returned, but it was now underscored by that shared moment of vulnerability. It was as if a hidden door had been opened between us, revealing a space of mutual respect and emotional honesty we hadn't known existed. We packed the last box of clothes, taped it shut, and Mark carried it out to the stack near the door. I wandered over to the window, looking out at the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the fiery sunset like a mirror. The familiar silhouettes of the pine trees stood dark against the brilliant sky. It was actually beautiful, imbued with the bittersweet weight of memory and the surprising tenderness of the day. Mark came back into the room, stopping a few feet away. He didn't speak, just stood there, watching the sunset with me. The silence wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, companionable. After a while, he said, his voice quiet, "It's strange, isn't it? How a place can hold so much history, so many feelings." I nodded, still looking out the window. "And how coming back can stir things up you didn't even know were still there." He moved closer, standing beside me at the window. Our shoulders were almost touching. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, a steady presence. "I haven't felt disconnected," he began, then hesitated, searching for the right words. "To our past, I mean. To family. In a long time." He turned his head slightly, looking at me. And there it was again, that look. Intense, open, searching. It wasn't just seeing me. It felt like he was seeing asterisk through asterisk me, right into the core of who I was, acknowledging all the years, all the changes, all the shared blood and history that tied us together. "Me neither," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. I finally turned from the window to face him fully. The fading light softened the lines on his face, highlighting the kindness in his eyes. There was an unexpected intimacy in that shared gaze, a profound sense of being truly seen and understood by someone who had known me my entire life, yet was only now truly seeing me as the woman I'd become. And I was seeing him too, not just Mark the cousin, but Mark the man, with his own struggles, his own history etched into his features. He reached out, not to touch my face or hand, but just rested his fingertips lightly on my forearm, right where my hand had rested on his earlier. The touch was electric, not in a passionate way, but in an emotionally resonant way. It felt like a spark jumping across a gap, igniting a deep, dormant understanding. "Sarah," he said, his voice low and earnest, I'm really glad we're doing this together." The simplicity of the words, combined with the intensity of his gaze and the light touch, felt momentous. It was the culmination of the day's shared memories and rediscovered closeness. It was the unexpected event, not a dramatic happening, but a quiet, profound shift in perception, a mutual acknowledgement of a bond that ran deeper than either of us had realized. It was powerful, respectful, and utterly, surprisingly, real. We stayed like that for a moment, caught in the intensity of the shared understanding. The touch on my arm wasn't possessive or suggestive. It felt like an anchor, a point of connection in the midst of swirling emotions and memories. Then, as if by mutual, unspoken agreement, he slowly withdrew his hand, and the spell, while not broken, gently eased. He cleared his throat, a slight flush creeping up his neck. "We should probably think about dinner," he said, his voice returning to a more normal register, though the warmth remained. "Yeah," I agreed, feeling a little breathless. "Yeah, good idea." The charged atmosphere lingered, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was more like the air after a summer storm, cleansed, fresh, and humming with a quiet energy. We moved back towards the kitchen, the familiar space now feeling subtly different, imbued with the new dynamic between us. We made dinner together, a simple meal of pasta and salad, moving around the small kitchen with an easy, almost practiced rhythm despite the years of separation. We talked more, not just about Aunt Carol or the past, but about our present lives, our jobs, our kids, his grown, mine nearly there, the small joys and frustrations of middle age. There were no more intense gazes or emotionally charged touches, but the newfound respect and openness remained. It was in the way he listened intently when I spoke about my struggling garden, the way I genuinely laughed at his story about a disastrous work presentation. We were seeing each other as complete people, peers navigating the complexities of life, carrying the shared foundation of our childhood into a new adult understanding. After dinner, we sat on the porch swing, mugs of tea warming our hands as the stars began to pepper the darkening sky. The lake was a sheet of black glass, reflecting the pinpricks of light above. The rhythmic creak of the swing was a soothing sound, a familiar lullaby from summers past. "It's good to be here," Mark said quietly, looking out at the water. "Even though it's sad, it's good." I knew what he meant. The sadness of Aunt Carol's passing was undeniable, but sharing the task, the memories, and this unexpected reconnection had brought a layer of comfort, even healing. "It is," I agreed. I was worried it would just be hard, depressing. "Me too." He turned slightly towards me on the swing. "What, it hasn't been like that, has it? It's been different." I finished for him. He nodded, a soft smile playing on his lips in the dim light. Different. Better. We sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, watching the stars, listening to the gentle lap of water against the shore. The weekend wasn't over. There were more boxes to sort, more memories to unpack. But something fundamental had shifted between us. That look, that moment of profound emotional connection, had changed the landscape of our relationship. It wasn't about romance. It was about recognition, respect, and the surprising depth of familial bonds when you finally take the time to truly see the person standing beside you. As I eventually headed up to the guest room, leaving Mark still sitting on the porch, I felt a sense of quiet gratitude. Gratitude for the shared past that had shaped us, and gratitude for the unexpected present moment that had allowed us to see that past and each other with fresh eyes. It was a reminder that connections can evolve, deepen, and surprise you, even with the people you think you know best. The cousin I'd arrived to meet that morning was still there, but I now saw him and perhaps myself through a different, richer lens. And that felt like a discovery worth cherishing.